Hello friends, today we're going to do basically the most functional Muso games on the Steam Deck. As you can see, I have the vast majority of them, but most of them don't work well. We're going to go through the list of the games that I won't be covering, mostly just because I've already tested them or I looked through other reports and the game was either running poorly or didn't run at all. Berserk you can get running, but it runs at like below 30 FPS, which obviously this thing can handle Doom Eternal at like relatively high settings at a lock 60 FPS. So not being able to handle a Muso game is pretty ridiculous. It's a problem with the Proton/Linux compatibility. So I'm going to throw out a disclaimer. If you plan on getting a Steam Deck, it is possible to dual boot and install Windows. So for a lot of these games that either don't run right or don't run at all, that's probably an option. But right now, with my current budget and stuff and the things I've got to do, I'm not going to be able to do that anytime soon. So this is pretty much just going to be things that you can either get working out of the box or with a little bit of minimal tweaking at best, you'll be able to just turn the game on and play. I have not tried this, but I lost my save file. I've upgraded my computer numerous times since this came out, so I don't have the save anymore. I don't really feel like starting the game from scratch again. I did buy the Microsoft Store version, but as you can probably surmise or predict, the game does not work on that version does not work on the Steam Deck out of the box. I would have to install Windows. I'm going to assume that it would work fine, but I am not currently capable of doing that. Also, I just started this game again on the Switch, like not that long ago, like barely half a year ago. So I'm not really wanting to do that, but I hear that it does work. The two Dynasty Warriors 9 games run pretty poorly. I don't really know what else to say about it other than that. They're both unsupported, so I'm not sure how much it even really matters. I think Pirate Warriors 3 works, but apparently it's got some rough performance issues. I think my save for that is probably gone as well. It's a pretty crappy port, as we all know, so I don't think it has Steam Cloud. Yeah, it does not, so I'd have to start from scratch. But Pirate Warriors 4 actually does work to a degree. The main problem with Steam Deck is that it wants exorbitant amounts of shader cache space just to run. For some reason, this game takes literally 25 gigs of shader cache space, which, as you can see here, the game itself is 22 gigs, so it wants to install more shader cache than the actual file size of the game. I was able to test it when I first got my Steam Deck. It seemed like it worked okay, but I'm not really going to be able to do extensive testing on this until I increase the onboard memory in the Steam Deck, which will probably take some time. Samurai Warriors 5, for some reason, was just not working anywhere near as well for me as it was for others. I tried numerous times and I could not get it working. I might go back to this at some point, but for now, I couldn't really recommend it. It might be something to do with the write speed of my SD card. I did get like a cheaper third-party one. I'll probably get a more legit one later on, but this did not work as advertised at all. It had a lot of stuttering and frame pacing issues and stuff. It's something I might be able to fix, but I'd probably have to ask from external sources. Spirit of Sanada is pretty much the same. It does run. I did have to put it in windowed mode, but it ran like crap. It was like barely 30 FPS, so I don't think it's really worth it. I feel like if you wanted to play that game portable, you could just get the Japanese Switch version and just use your phone to translate, if you so desire. From what I've seen, that version's actually not that bad. With the way that Proton is and the bad Spirit of Sanada port on PC, I think that would be your ideal way to play if you're, insistent on playing the game portable. So that's pretty much it. Every other game in here works, so we're just going to go ahead and go through these. I'm actually probably not going to edit this video just because I don't think it's really worth it. I actually lost my really good editing software when I upgraded my PC, and the new one I'm using, the renders, they're ridiculous file sizes and I'm low on space, so we're just gonna go through this fast. Alright. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 actually does turn on and work to a degree, but it runs pretty poorly. It's well documented that this is a pretty bad port as well, so it's about what you would expect. I feel like I would edit this video, but there's a lot to explain, so I kind of feel like it's going to be counterproductive to do that. We're just going to go through this quickly. So, the thing about this game is, regardless of what settings you choose, it's not going to be stable. I have it, like, pretty low settings, and it still drops frames a ton, so, for what it's worth, it's going to be better than the Switch version. There is a Switch version of this game that only came out in Japan. Now, you could play that, but obviously the language barrier, and that port runs like garbage, so this is still the best way to play the game portably, I would argue. It's possible that maybe there's a patch for the Japanese version, but you still got the language barrier, you gotta go import the game and stuff, so I don't really think that's ideal, all things considered. It actually looks quite nice blown up on the screen. The low settings don't really matter that much on a game like this anyway. It's a pretty stylized game in general, so I don't think it matters too much, all things considered. Alright. So pretty much whenever you produce any particle effects or something, the game is going to drop. There doesn't seem to be anything you can really do about it. I know this is kind of a low bar, but it's better than the Switch version. See, it drops frames a ton, but it's not too bad. It's actually about on par with the base PS4 version of this game, which was the first time I played this game before I got the PC version. The PC version does not go on sale very often, so I played this game on PS4 initially. There were a lot of times where it tanked, so I think it's an engine issue. I don't know if this can be fixed by Valve themselves, possibly with maybe Proton versions and stuff, it'll get fixed. But yeah, pretty much every time you do an attack, it's gonna drop frames. So if you're sensitive to frame rate, you might not wanna bother getting this. If you had this game backlogged, however, you already bought it. It's not a bad way to play the game, really. All right, well there you go. Let's make time here. Got a couple games to go through. Alright. So the only other remaining functional game in this lineup is Fate External Link. I'm actually not going to bother covering that, just because I already covered it in the previous video I did of the best action games on the deck. It works beautifully. I did not have to tweak any settings at all, so the fact that it says it's unsupported is BS. The game works fine. Literally just install it and turn it on and it will work. For the second row here, we don't have that many games that function. I tried a decent chunk of these, and they all have their various problems. So I didn't try Pirate Warriors 3, but we'll probably do that in a separate video later. Actually, do not have it installed right now, so that's out of the question. Now, Senran Kagura is a non-Koei Tecmo Musou game, so whatever engine they're using for this, it just works. I have not played this game in years, but I was curious. You know, I have mostly Koei Tecmo Musou games on Steam, and most of them, as we've already mentioned, do not work. So I went ahead and installed this, and it works fine.
Marvelous.
It seems to be the pattern with Musou games on Steam Deck, is if they're made by Koei Tecmo, there's a very low chance that they will work, or you'll have to fight with it a bunch, and then once you fight with it, it generally will work. But the non-Koei Tecmo ones, which there obviously aren't that many of, they all work fine from my experience. I don't think this game is that great, but if you already have it and you want to play it on the deck, I can guarantee you it works fine. Let's get into a quick fight here. Gotta lower my anime blood alcohol content after playing this game. This game is actually quite stiff, but if you guard cancel, it's actually kind of responsive. So this game works fine. I did not even have to go in the settings at all, so I would consider this to be in the higher tier of Musou games you can play on the deck. Like I said, pretty much if it's made by Koei Tecmo, your success rate is going to vary. But if it's not made by Koei Tecmo, it will pretty much just turn on and work. I don't know how many Musou games I'm missing on Steam, but I imagine I have most of them, so that one gets an S rank for compatibility. Warriors All-Stars. Only thing I did with this was make it run in GE Proton. There's plenty of guides on how to do that. I feel like if you're really serious about doing this, I know a lot of people who watch my channel do not have a Steam Deck. There are multiple tutorials on how to do that, so I'm gonna skip that step, and we're just gonna keep this video nice and concise. I figured with how much explaining I have to do, the video is already going to be pretty long and not really applicable to really edit. But the game works fine. Hold on. Don't know if I can get past this menu. One moment. Alright, I think we're good now. The thing about a lot of the older Koei Tecmo games is that they have a built-in menu, and it does not support... wait a minute. This is annoying. Video was going smoothly, and then this stupid game had to screw me over. It's not accepting my controller. Alright, we'll just play on the deck itself. Alright. It's a little bit awkward, but... I'm sure the wolf people have some very valuable things to say, but we're not going to listen to them. So for this game, pretty much just want to put it on low settings, which isn't going to make the game look much worse, but it runs pretty stable.
それだけ強い影響力を持つんだ。
そこをのけ。
So 720p low is about all you need for this.
荒廃した土地がこれだけ綺麗になるとは。やっぱり英雄の力はすごいな。
精鋭分隊の名にかけてお前を止めてみせる。おっとどけ。
Okay, here's the ultimate benchmark here. Can it handle this? You can see it's running pretty solid. Lots of enemies on the screen and barely any drops.
まさか王位を目指しているのか。だがそのためには玉木と戦わねばならない。そんなやつじゃなかったはずだ。負けられない。
Alright. That's clearly working well. Kind of awkward using the deck as a controller while you've got it hooked up to your capture card and computer. But yeah, for that game, pretty much all you need to do is just run it in Proton GE. It's going to be a bit of a pain to get it to work docked because apparently it's not taking a controller input after you get past that menu. The menu does not accept controller input either, so that won't be a problem. I imagine most people getting a Steam Deck are probably going to be playing this portable anyway. The only real reason to use it docked is if you're recording or a content creator like I am, or if you don't have a computer. You know, obviously I have a gaming PC, so if I want to play this game, I could just hook it up on my computer if I want to hook it up to a monitor. But yeah, it works surprisingly well. It says that it's playable, but it pretty much works perfectly. You just have to just tweak those two things and it'll work fine. So Warriors Orochi 3 is kind of an interesting one. The thing about this game is the game has this weird wobbly screen shake when you just play it out of the box, like it's having some kind of epileptic seizure or something. Now, there's two ways you can fix that. The first and less desirable way would be to put the game in desktop mode, play the game in desktop mode, and that will remove it entirely, or you can also go into the options and fix it this way. So you can just go ahead and copy my settings and the game will work perfect. Nice little technical difficulties there. See, it's all wobbly right now. Put it on full screen. Oops. Wait, it's not going away. Well, I did have this working earlier. I don't know why it's not working now. Maybe it doesn't like being docked. I've still got wobbles here. I don't know why this happens. It's very annoying. I had this perfectly set up and it's not wanting to work now. Like how they say this is playable and it's got this problem. Hold on. Might be able to fix this. Let's see if this fixes it. It's freaking out even more. Alright. Very annoying that they don't care to fix stuff like this. soon as I commit to a non-edited video, it does this crap. It's very obnoxious. Anyway, I don't know why it's doing this. It was completely fine before. As soon as I start recording, it decides to screw me over. But basically, you can play this game in desktop mode, and it will work fine. That's pretty much what everyone has said has been the main fix for it anyway. I don't know why they don't care to fix this, but it's a very known problem with this port. If you play in desktop mode, it will work pretty much perfectly, so I would give that probably like a maybe a B for compatibility. You should not even need to do that in the first place. They mark it as playable, but it's got that problem, so your mileage may vary with that. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's docked or something that it's doing that, but actually it was working fine for me earlier. Warriors Orochi 4, for this, you're going to want to put it in GE mode, which is going to be a very common thing that you do for Koei Tecmo Musou games, meaning that once you put the GE Proton on, a lot of the games either will just run, or they'll run better. A lot of these games use the same engine, or they use like varying versions of the same engine, so generally you're going to have to install Proton GE if you want to play the vast majority of these games. Now, some of the games that I did not mention, that I didn't include in the video, actually do require it as well, but they run so poorly that I would argue you're probably better off just like playing the Switch version, or just not even bothering to load it on the deck. It actually doesn't really seem to be much with the games itself. It's because it's incompatible with Linux/Proton, which is basically what they use to make Windows programs work on Linux. Obviously, these games are not going to get patched for Steam Deck compatibility. I would be shocked if they did, so things really aren't going to get much better unless Proton actually updates and somehow it miraculously fixes these games, because obviously these games aren't like high demand or anything. Like they went through a lot of work to get Doom Eternal to work, but obviously that's way more popular than all these games combined. So if you want to play Musou on here, you can pretty much just follow this guide. You can go through it, and a decent chunk of the games do work, but some of them have their fair share of problems. The launcher is going to be a really hard thing to get past, because it won't accept touchscreen support. So that means that if you're playing like this, it's going to be a real pain to get past. Yeah, I already put it on 60 FPS, and it's still freaking out, so I have no idea what's wrong with that. Anyway, last game, probably the one a lot of people want to run because the, what's it called, the Switch port is pretty poor. It can barely maintain 30 FPS. Alright, so for this game, basically you want to run it under Proton GE, like I said. Go into options. And then pretty much just copy these settings. This is basically the best that I could get the game to look while maintaining 60 FPS most of the time. Now, when you do the big magic attacks and stuff, the game is going to drop frames, but to be fair, it does that on console as well. This game is not very well optimized, so but you're invincible during those big attacks anyway, so it might not be pleasing to the eyes, but I can't really say that it impacts gameplay in any way. So you want to go in here. If you have the game already, just go ahead and copy these settings. You go ahead and pause the video as you see fit. I'll go through it one more time. And the game should run pretty stable. Let's turn this down a little bit so you can hear me. Feel like the deck should be able to run this game as well, but Koei Tecmo engine that they use for Musou games and this just don't play nice, so I don't know what to say other than that. I would not recommend a Steam Deck if all you want to play is Musou. If you want to play Musou on the side and play a bunch of other games, which I already did a video for, by the way, then I would recommend it. But if you want this to be a portable Musou machine, I feel like your best bet is going to be to just install Windows on it, honestly, because then you'll have access to like way more games and stuff. But out of the box, it's not ideal. Alright. I feel like the graphics settings don't really make this game look much worse anyway, so I think it's fine the way it is. Now, I've done a few maps on this over at my caregiving job, and I can tell you that it does drop frames more on certain maps, so if you're playing portable, maybe you might want to do certain maps at home. Just treat it like Smash Brothers, you know, how they ban certain levels because they either lag or they don't like the platforms or something. You might have to play it like that. Which isn't that big of a deal anyway. The infinite mode kind of doesn't cycle through that many maps anyway, so... I'd argue this, I'd probably give this an A in compatibility. You are going to have to nerf the graphics settings quite a bit, but... when you consider that you're only using an 800p screen anyway to play this in native Steam Deck resolution, I don't think it really matters that much. It looks better and runs better than the Switch version with minimal tweaking. Even with a lot of the settings turned on low, it still looks better than the Switch version. And it stays, I'd say, 50 to 60 FPS on average. You are going to get some tanks when you use the big powers and stuff, but I don't really think that matters. This is not a fighting game. You don't need rock-solid, stable performance, really. Alright, well there you go. There's your little Musou video on the deck. Sorry I couldn't get Warriors Orochi 3 working. I don't know what the hell was wrong with that, but if I wanted to, I could go into desktop mode and show it, but basically you'll just need to change the screen settings for it, and the game will run fine. I think that they desperately need to fix that, but for now, the workaround is to run it in desktop mode. The game will just work fine, no BS. When you try to run it in gaming mode, there is a chance that you'll get the weird epileptic seizure kind of thing, like the Simpsons in Japan when they watch Ultraman and they're all having a seizure on the floor. That's pretty much the only consistent way to fix that from what I've seen. I don't know if that's happening because I have it in docked mode or not, but overall, there's a surprising amount of games that do run. There's a lot that run really poorly, and I feel like, you know, these games are several dozen gigs each. The shader cache can be quite large for them as well, so I don't really consider it to be worth it. A lot of them are unsupported for a reason, but there are some that say unsupported that do work fine. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is, I'd argue, maybe it's a little bit worse than the PS4 version, but about on par. It's already a very poorly optimized game as it is. It already drops frames even on console with no mods or Linux or Proton or Windows to worry about. It's still better than the Switch version, and you do get English text as a result as well. They did not put that game in English for whatever reason, probably because the port is crappy, but if it says unsupported, I definitely recommend trying it anyway. You can go on protondb.com. They'll give you a lot of the steps here if you need me to repeat them. See, Warriors Orochi 4, you just saw me play that, and it's completely fine. It says it's unsupported, it's just you need to use Proton GE and tweak the settings a bit, otherwise it's going to be a slideshow. But it very much does work. I guess maybe when they start changing the engine, maybe more of the games will work. This game is actually on the new engine, but it runs terribly for me. I have no idea how to fix it. I tried it numerous times and kind of just drew up a blank, but this game's not really that good anyway, so I don't really think it's worth the stress. You got a decent amount of games on here that do work fine, or you just have to tweak them minimally. Like it says this game is unsupported, which is BS. It just means that they haven't had anybody to actually test it. Game just turned on and worked. I did absolutely nothing to it at all. I did not even go into the options. Runs at the perfect 60 FPS, so literally double as good as the Switch version. Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is unsupported. It does work, but it drops frames a ton. I think Pirate Warriors 3 does work, but I didn't bother to test it just because I heard that there were a lot of major problems with it, and also my save file got torched, so I'm probably more likely to maybe just play that on Switch, because the Switch version is actually not that bad. The Warriors Orochi 3 has the epileptic seizure problem, but other than that, works perfectly, so definitely better than the Japanese Switch version. Warriors Orochi 4 I just went over. Pretty much anything that's not Koei Tecmo should run fine. I don't know how many other Musou games I'm missing, but if you want to make some suggestions, maybe I can test them later on. So, sorry about a little bit of a sloppy video format here. I didn't really feel it was worth editing, just because I have to talk over this stuff so much. It would have just increased the render time and it wouldn't have really made the video much more concise or constructive. So, thanks for watching. I'll probably do some more of these later on if I can manage to get them to work well.